so we are going to get into this pretty quickly here. Our next is Andre and Matthew. And just to reintroduce myself, if you've been joining late, I'm Jeremy Austin, Senior Product Manager here for Preseem. And I'm your host for today and tomorrow. And let's see here. Let's bring in Andre. And hey, Andre, how's it going? The one with the good background is the one I needed. So Andre, nice to see you again. Founder and CEO of QC AI, deep roots in the ISP customer experience sectors. Andre saw a critical gap in the industry, operators sitting on vast amounts of customer data, call recordings, billing interactions, support tickets, but with no practical way to turn that into insight. So combining his industry expertise with the focus on AI-driven intelligence, Andre founded QC with a mission to help ISPs move beyond basic analysis and use AI to transform raw data into actionable customer experience and retention strategies. QC helps operators protect and grow their bottom line while keeping their customers happy. Welcome, Andre.
Thank you, Jeremy. That's a perfect presentation of QC. I will steal it from you.
Matthew Stuck, data scientist focused on applying machine learning to real-world ISP operations. That's after my own heart. Built and deployed an end-to-end churn prediction model, translating raw network billing and support data into actionable retention strategies. And his work centers on bridging the gap between predictive models and day-to-day decision-making, with a focus on working through imperfect data and driving measurable business impact. So we're about 1 minute early, so I'll be back in about 15 minutes to handle the Q&A. So take it away, gents.
Thank you. Yeah, so today we will show you, two sides of the same problem, and this problem is customer experience and churn. So Matt, he will start with sharing his experience and take you inside of one ISP specific case, and afterwards I will share what we see across many ISPs we work with and what's working, what's not from our experience. But first thing I want to start with a quick mess. So what we see and what we do with every operator on the call, and we do simple calculation, right? Because every time you implement a new product, new system, or even invest your own time to build new workflow, automation, or now use AI to automate something, right? You have to understand return on investment. And the best part, I believe, in telecom space is you can always find a way how to get good return on investment if you invest in customer experience and churn. Because if we look at these numbers and you have 10,000 subscribers and you have low monthly churn, about 1%, that's 1,200 customers a year, right? But obviously, we cannot say that they're all controllable and you can save them. Some of them they're not paying their bill. Some of them are moving out of the area. So let's assume, and we prefer to be pessimistic, and I prefer to be pessimistic in this when it goes to ROI. Let's say 5% is controllable. So your target is you can save 60 subscribers a year. And if you calculate the opportunity here, this 60 saves, it gives you $50,000 in recovered revenue a year, right? And then if you have 20,000 subs, just multiply it by 2. If you have 5,000 subs, you can run your numbers. But at the same time, I know that ISPs, some of them, they're looking to acquire other ISPs or sell their company. So if you think about this in enterprise value, it's even more, because we know these multiples, like private equities are paying now for subscribers. Let's say it's 5x. So enterprise value of the 60 saves is $300,000 at least. So from this perspective, you definitely can and want to invest in churn reduction. But the question is how you can identify the 60 customers. And I think Matt will share a good example in his experience how you can actually identify these customers.
Thank you. All right, so reactive retention is a great tool and a really important tool. But when that's all you have, it kind of feels like you're fighting a losing battle the whole time. A lot of that is because we use tenure thresholds. So we'll call people a certain amount of time, like after they are installed. And that doesn't necessarily always line up to when they start experiencing issues, because it's kind of what the operator does, but it doesn't line up with their timing. So support ticket triggers are another one that we use. But those, we find that most of our people that cancel either have never called us or haven't called us in 6 months. And so by the time they're opening a ticket, they've decided to cancel. Surveys are another issue. So a lot of times you only hear from the loudest people, either the people that are the most happy with you or the most upset with you. And those ones are hard to intervene on because they're so upset with you, they don't really want to stick around. So that's kind of why we built the model. So our model, we take a few different data sources. So we're looking at primarily our router data. So that's kind of the in-home Wi-Fi. Is that working as planned? The radio telemetry data. So is the signal strong? Are they dropping off often? Are they, is their radio just restarting all the time? So those are the two driving factors in the model. And I like that because it means that the customers that we find are actually the customers that are experiencing bad service. So they're the easiest to actually intervene on and fix. So support tickets is another one we use. We look at the volume over a given amount of days, and we also look at the specific tickets. Are they logging tickets for outages, slow internet, things like that? We look at the specific ones. Another thing we do is billing data. So we're looking at invoices, price per megabytes, things like that. And then FCC competitor availability is a big one. So we break that down by zip code, and the FCC tells you what percentage of that zip code can achieve a given speed from any provider. And that gives a lot of competitive context. And so context is kind of the main thing in this, because if you took just one of these data sources, you wouldn't really be able to find a meaningful signal to predict when somebody's going to cancel. And even if you took just 2 or 3, you probably wouldn't be able to find one either. But the signal comes from when you combine them all. The model can learn the context and like what kind of causes somebody to churn, what combination of factors cause somebody to cancel. So whenever we operate on maintaining our top 100 list, so the top 100 customers that we flag as the highest risk, those are customers that we contact. So right now we're looking at our list is about 5 times better than random. However, this is kind of a conservative estimate because we had a pipeline issue with the data. It wasn't coming through super well. And it kind of caused a lot of weeks to be pretty bad. But then as that got fixed, we're now like pushing past 5 times. But at the same time that we're pushing past 5 times, we're intervening on not all 100 customers, but we're intervening on customers. And that's kind of causing it to look like there's less churners being found. So which is a good sign. But so that's probably closer to like 5, 6 times random. So to put that into perspective, if you called 100 random subscribers and your churn per month is about 1 to 2%, you're only going to find 1 to 2 churners. But if you have this list that's now 5 to 6 times better than random, you're finding somewhere between 5 and 12 churners every week. So we run it weekly. So over Q1, when I collected data and I look back on what we would have predicted, we would have predicted about 13% of the churners over that. And that's kind of including that bad week or those bad weeks. So we expect that to kind of slowly start to get better. And another thing to think about on this list is that since we run it weekly, a lot of the customers stay on that list week to week. So over time, the top 100 list is only about 40 new calls every week. So that's a lot of bang for your buck, basically, on the calls. Not too many calls, a lot of saves. So that kind of, I hope to expand our list down to like top 150, top 200, maybe even top 500 at some point. And as you expand farther down that list, we see the times better than random gets a little bit worse because it's kind of a broader search. But you do start to find a lot more churn. You cover a larger percentage of it. And so that's kind of where you as an operator would want to sit down and figure out, all right, what is our capabilities? And then what's going to be the best aspect that gives us the best return on what list size you want to look at and how many you're going to try and target. So like I said, this is a weekly process. So I wake up Monday morning, I run the model, and then I pass that off to the retention team. So what I use is a model called XGBoost, and that gives us, they're called SHAP values, and that's basically what is important for that certain customer. What did the model look at that told them that they were probably going to churn? So I include that information when I pass that to the retention team, and they make calls, and they're primarily just calling, hey, like, how's your service been? Is everything all right? And they just check up low cost calls. And then they take notes, and I look at a lot of those notes, and a lot of what we see is there's calling saying, oh, like I had equipment upgrade, it didn't go so well, like I've been lagging, or this other company is trying to sell really hard to me, things like that. A lot of times they're like, oh, happy, no issues, but the model is pointing out people that look like churners. So even if they weren't going to cancel, they still look like a churner, and you might not have been giving them the best service that you could. So that's kind of one of the benefits of the model. Then I measure it, see how well we were doing, and then I retrain it for the next week and send that to them. It's kind of just we just continuously do it. So that's kind of just how we do it. I know Andre works with a lot of other ISPs, so I'll leave it to you, and you can see how it works for the rest of them.
Yeah, I would say honestly, it's a pretty similar approach. That ISPs usually they'll get list of top priorities for retention, because sometimes we deal with not only network data, and we announced our partnership with Preseem today, and it definitely improves score. Sometimes it just alert based on incoming call or submitted ticket, and you see that it's forced ticket this month from this customer, so it's high churn risk. So we'll have a retention queue similar to what you built, but updated in real time, and then retention manager act based on this data explanation why customer has high churn risk. But what we found, and it's interesting because we processing like 100,000 calls a month now, and we analyze calls with retention, and we found that on savable retention, the way how you can improve chance of actually retaining the customer, a difference between your best and your low performing agents, they just try more times. Like on the call, you can see that the more attempts you make to retain the customer, and then unexpectedly, you can retain more customers if you try more. So if you just, if you don't handle their objections, if you don't offer them, better plan, better price, if you stop after the first offer, you're leaving money on the table. Yeah, you should try more. You should try more. You should call back, and then there's a chance you can retain this customer. And yeah, it's a huge difference between agent performance and saving. So again, same as with sales, retention, it's a process. You have to maintain this process, and then I would say that we found that prediction might be the easy part of churn, because once you predict, then you have to establish process to actually have someone who go and save this customer. And that's also interesting part, that people that are scared of AI taking their jobs. But what we see from our experience, once you implement this retention tools or customer experience platform, you actually have new work to do. And instead of manually listening to calls, reviewing tickets, now you can actually go and save these customers, because you have to pay attention to this. So don't be scared about AI replacing your job, at least, especially with customer experience platforms. And churn, you will have a lot, you will have more work to do, but it's more productive and fruitful. Yeah, so we prepared for you, one thing we want to take you back and discuss with your team on Monday. Like, Matt, what's your take-home exercise for our audience?
I would say just collecting your data and like storing that, because what I see a lot of times whenever I'm like kind of online looking at like what are other people doing to look at their churn and analyze their churn, a lot of times they're only taking the data from the churners, so they're finding out which groups are churning, which things like that. But that's like okay to like know, it's good to know there's a time and place for that, but that makes it really difficult to act on, because you know what a churner looks like, but also there's a chance that it's your churner just looks like the rest of your network. So you're going to have a hard time picking them out from the group. So kind of collecting both on your current customers, the ones that stay and are happy, and the ones that cancel, collecting them both and using a model to determine what is the difference between these customers. Yeah, that's what I would do.
That's a good point. And from my side, I would say that definitely don't build models or don't implement retention tools until you know who will actually own this process. So first define who will do it, and usually it's you can see from the analytics it will be one of your best, sales managers, or sometimes it's your QA manager will start doing retention work. And actually, important part, we touched this at the beginning, like ROI. As you can see, if you have 10,000 subs and 1% monthly churn, you have opportunity to retain 50,000 in revenue per year. And right now, because of AI, it's getting cheaper, it's working faster, you have more tools available, you can get churn prediction, every ticket analyzed, every call analyzed, and it will cost you less than $1,000 a month. Like it's, you invest 12,000, you get back 50,000 plus all this visibility and automations. So I would say it's no brainer. Like it's cheaper to implement than not to implement these tools. And now it's time to answer questions.
Fantastic. Really enjoyed that, both of you. Thanks for sharing your process there, Matthew, and Andrew. Some really fantastic intelligence from the from the data that you've got. I have a question about that, and this is really, you talked about the unsavable folks. People lie about the reasons why they leave. What how much do you think that affects how you analyze the churn? Are you able to detect approximately what percentage of people are lying? Because I know, like, mathematically, there's a way to do it, but is that something that you've tried? Maybe I'll start with you, Andrew, first.
Yeah, I would say that it's definitely challenging to predict if person is lying to you or not. If they say that they're moving out of the area, like there's no way to confirm this. But what we also found, what we consider as savable churn, and what we send to retention queue is if someone's calling to cancel because they move out of the area, and you didn't ask their new address, it can be your savable churn, right? And we found this like so often in calls, or sometimes
like someone's moving still within the coverage area.
Yeah, because you didn't ask. How would you know if you can offer internet to this customer or not? Yeah, so it's you don't even have to lie to miss this opportunity to retain the customer sometimes.
Do you find that there's a similar, like if you have somebody who is kind of doing the hard sell on the retention side, that that they end up eventually churning anyway? Or are you've looked at this over a long enough period of time to see, like, if you saved somebody and you've taken care of them, made sure that they're not a churn risk, like Matthew's, your concerns there, you don't want just to convince them to stay with you. You want to actually solve their problems. Do you find that that's a risk at all, or is that that you really need both of those processes hand in hand?
Actually, it's interesting because we were working on a case study. We'll publish it soon with one of our customers, and we had 1 year of analysis for them, and we rerun scoring on every saved customer, and we found that out of 1,200 customers they saved, only 5 or 6 still canceled after they retained them.
5 or 6% or 5 or 6 total?
5 or 6 total.
Oh, that's very good then.
Yeah.
Okay. So it doesn't seem like this is a high risk thing then.
Yeah, but they might appear in the retention queue multiple times, right? If you call about the issue, someone calls back, calm you down, explain that we're working on this problem, it's a fiber cut, whatever.
Are you tracking that in your model, Matthew? Because I know you're talking about looking back,
tracking which part specifically?
Like near misses.
Near misses. So we haven't actually started operating on the model as much as I would like, but we started kind of late March. Nobody that we've contacted has canceled yet, but there are a lot of people, they didn't quite get down the whole list. There was like a lot of customers still left on the table, but nobody that we've contacted has canceled over the last like a month or so, month and a half.
Fantastic. We're running to the we've got a little bit more time here. There is a question from Neil, and I'll see if you want to take this one. It's for you, Matthew. It is: are you pulling the customer data out of Splinks If so, how do you feed it to the LLM, and which LLM are you using? If that's
So
not too
yeah, so
detailed.
I pull the data from a bunch of different aspects. We have our own homegrown system that's kind of like Splink's called Norm. So I do pull that, but I'm sure Splink's has a lot of the same data. I know we use that one as well. So we put all of our data, it goes into a reporting console to make it really easy for our data team to access efficiently. And I don't actually use an LLM. I use what's called XGBoost. So it's basically, it's kind of like right tool for the right job. Like this is like a classification problem. You're trying to determine, is somebody a churner? Is somebody like going to retain and stay as a customer? LLMs are more for like talking and logic, but this is just like a classification problem. So it basically just makes a bunch of trees. Then it does there's a lot more complicated math in there that it does as well. But yeah, it just takes the data, breaks it down into a bunch of trees. It actually trains really fast, so it doesn't take that long to train. The hardest part is just the quality of the data, making sure you have the right data, making sure you're not like leaking any data, like helping the model cheat. Because then in production it's not as good. But yeah, it's called XGBoost. It's a fairly simple, or not simple, but it's fairly easy to use because the Python libraries and things like that.
That the LLM is good at that, driving the libraries. Awesome. And then one last question here, because you talked about how your old method involved NPS surveys. Maybe you talked about that some too, Andre. But for you, Matthew, because there's a relatively low response rate on that, have you left that out of your model because you're just unlikely to have it as a signal?
I don't have that in my model because I don't have like that historic data in there. So basically, I only train on, we look like only 30 days back, and then we include like a few different like weeks of that. So I don't have that data from like all the time. So I don't use that in my model. But
we're gonna take one more. There's a question from Tommy Krogan, and this might be for both of you. Maybe start with an Andre, which is, when you give ownership of a retention program to someone, what do they need to be successful?
I would say that from our side, we found that we want to force customers to be successful. So we integrate with whatever platform they use. We send alerts to teams that this customer has high churn risk, so you can act immediately, and the entire management team see this, right? So you own this process. We keep list of active customer for proactive retention process. So we kind of build UI and process around the platform, so you're forced to act, right? Because otherwise, you'll just have another data silo, like spreadsheet or platform. You never open it, and you never know that you have customer to retain.
And Matthew, so it's early days yet, but you're seeing some successes from it. I mean, do you have a vision of what it's going to take for this program to be successful?
I'd say the number one thing is just being able to communicate to them like the benefit and like the actual numbers of like, the numbers don't seem super high, but over time they add up to a really significant amount. So just getting them to believe in that process and understand it is kind of the main thing that can drive a lot of success in that.
That's fantastic. Yeah, I had a large ISP tell me that they really, they could set as an achievable goal 0.2% of reduction, and that was enough to determine the profitability, because they were pretty close to where they wanted to be. So it's not like it necessarily has to be, we've got to cut our churn in half. And I loved your numbers there, Andre, and saying, hey, if you just do a little bit of this, you can pay for all of this work that's going to bring you in a lot of revenue. So we do have to head on to our next session, but I really want to thank you both for participating. It's been fantastic having you, and hopefully this is not the last time. Thanks, Andre, and thank you, Matthew.
Thank you,
Thanks for having us.
Thank you, Jeremy.
Fantastic.
Thank you,
Have a great day.